Without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Cronkite Show in social media history. I want to welcome you to the War Zone. I got my co-host, Donovan Sadiq, the Queen, Demetri K, and I got a bad man from Welfare to West Point. I got my man Wendell Champion running for U.S. Congress. Republican, I got my people in the building with me. Say, man, it's what it is. We gonna get to it, man. Say, I want to welcome all of you guys and ladies to the War Zone. I really appreciate you tuning in. And as usual, without you, we would not have a show. And I want to thank all of y'all for taking the time out, especially on this holiday weekend, to tune into the War Zone. I had a simple day. I was behind on homework because I know Demetri normally asks me what I got into. I was behind on homework, and I am on the dean's list, and I refuse to come off. So the whole day, just homework. But we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna turn it over to Demetri. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? And again, thank you, Wendell, for being here with us here on the War Zone on this Friday. I know you had a whole bunch of other things to do, but you're here with us. So we appreciate that. And hello to you guys on YouTube and Facebook. And so what's in the news? The police officers, some of the police officers, I don't even know if they were involved necessarily in the murder of Elijah McClain, but they definitely got in trouble and lost their jobs due to taking a picture and I guess mocking the chokehold, the fact that he was murdered via the chokehold. And so they lost their jobs due to that. And it's kind of funny, not like haha, but that they lost their jobs, but they're still waiting to fire and arrest the officers that actually murdered him. And so we'll see where that goes. So, Gary, I'll go ahead and turn that over to you.
Yeah, I saw that. But I just believe if you violate the law, let the law deal with you. That's how I feel about it. Whether you're black, white, whatever, we shouldn't be out just violating the law. I have been trying to connect with Wendell Champion for a while. I mean, because I was intrigued by who he was and what he stood for and what his platform, how he was running, with his platform. And I'm like, at that time, I was a uninformed black Democrat. So I'm like, I want to hear what this brother is actually talking about. So just so happens we had a mutual friend, and I reached out to the mutual friend, and I'm like, man, this is the man that I want on the show. Because if Wendell can pull this off in this runoff election, then he get to run against the big dog, Donovan. He gets to run against the legend, and I think that it is time for especially African American people to have conversations with Republicans, whether they're black or white, so that we can clearly understand at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. We just Americans. And we need to figure this out. So what better way to do it than get Wendell on the War Zone and we talk about it, man. How you doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. And I appreciate you having me on. It's just great to meet all of you. And let me tell you what, I just didn't know you're trying to get in touch with me. Because had I known, I would have been hounding you down, brother.
We figured it out. So, man, we don't waste no time.
That's right.
Get me. I want you to explain what you mean when you tell people that you went from welfare to West Point.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, this is not a story that's uncommon to us, really. My mom and I grew up in New York City, Brooklyn, Queens, went upstate New York, Detroit, and Albany. We moved around a lot. As so many of our young women Mom was 17-year-old pregnant, unmarried. And so we had to do the deal. And so this whole idea from welfare to West Point, it's not just about a physical thing. And so when we start to talk to our children and our mothers and our brothers and the young men out there, we want to let them know that going from welfare to West Point, that's a physical thing. But the slogan encompasses much more than that. It's about really a mentality. It's about the journey. It's about the struggle. It's about what it takes to be successful in America, period. And the welfare to West Point really is the American story. And it is the story that so many of us have experienced, regardless of whatever party we've been in. Our forefathers have experienced it. Our foremothers have experienced it. That whole idea that no matter how difficult life may be, we have an opportunity to make it better for ourselves. And I say that, make it better for ourselves. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the story my mom told me about us being on welfare. But understand that it takes a lot more than just waking up in the morning and deciding that you want to have a better life. But the story from welfare to West Point is the American story.
We got a similar story, man.
Of course we do.
I went from the trap house to the boardroom. and I'm being serious with you, man. I mean, it can be done.
It can be done.
You do not have to be trapped in the mentality of your environment.
That's right.
That's all it boils down to. You have to want better for yourself. Now, a lot of people, I went to the Trump rally in Tulsa, and a lot of people, they want to call African Americans that are Republicans or African Americans that support Donald Trump, they want to call them coons. What you got to say about that?
Well, obviously, when folks start to try to lump us in those categories, they really don't understand the full meaning of the word, first of all. And so it's not even about whether or not we are 100% Trumpsters and all that kind of stuff. We are simply men, American Black men that are pushing hard to be successful. And so regardless of who's at the top of this ticket, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to our families to do whatever it takes in order to get what we're supposed to have and get what we deserve. I'm just going to tell you, it's interesting. I was thinking about some of the things prior to coming on, and I thought about Malcolm X, and we're going to take his quote out of context a little bit, but he says we're by any means necessary. Now, a lot of folks might think that just means maybe we're talking about violence. No, by any means necessary means by any means necessary. The question is whether or not we're courageous enough to take off these labels that people are putting on us, these boxes that people want to put us in, and do whatever it takes by any means necessary. And that means going out here, finding a way, despite the obstacles, to get around them, get over them, get under them, get through them, whatever it might be. And for me and my family, that just happened to be the education route.
This is my last question, and I'll pass over to Dimitri. Now, I know I had an epiphany about a month ago. I know how I became a Republican. I got sick of hearing, the lies from the Democratic side and watching them not do anything. But one of our guests asked, I think it was Shamara, how did you end up becoming a African American Republican?
Yeah, so if that's the question for me, then let me say this, because some folks, unlike yourself, I had not grown up necessarily in a household that was a Democrat in voting. In fact, my mom and I, we didn't even talk about politics. So there was no reason for me to think one way or the other as far as a party allegiance, right? And so when you think about going from high school to West Point, and I end up at West Point right at the time Jimmy Carter was president, right at the time that Ronald Reagan gets into office. And here I am wearing a military uniform. And so my adult life has been military related. corporate related. I'm now working in law enforcement for the sheriff's office. And so I've always had this, if you want to say conservative, and I don't even like the term, but that's the term that we use, this conservative upbringing. But more than that, what I was taught was biblical principles by my mom. I told you she was a single mother. The only way we were going to make it through Brooklyn and Queens and not get scathed too hard was she had to teach me some Bible principles. And on those Bible principles are the things that I grew up on, which is consistent with most of our experiences in the Black community. And so when we start talking about being Republican or Democrat, the fact of the matter is, if we take these party labels and put them on the shelf, get rid of Republican for a second, get rid of Democrat for a second, and start thinking about what it is that we believe in as a people, we're the most conservative group of folks in America, period.
Ms. Demetra?
So once again, welcome to the War Zone. So you are looking to unseat Shelia Jackson Lee for District 18. I guess she's been there about 25 years or so, give or take. And you also have a very extensive career in the military, as you were saying. And one of the things you said is that you learned in the military is that you don't leave people behind. You go in there and you pull them out. Do you feel that Shelia Jackson Lee has left people behind?
Well, you know what? I'm just one person. And I think we can look at the community and it speaks for itself. You know, first, I'm going to say this. Shelia Jackson Lee, the Congresswoman, has been in office for 25 years, like you said. Anybody that's been doing anything for 25 years, serving the people, whether we agree with the way they've done it or not, you give respect to the fact that she's been in office for 25 years. Okay? With that said, when we look at where we thought we would be from the time, a quarter of a century, that's a long time. That's a long time. And I think we can all say, if we start ticking off those things that are important to us as family members, we have not progressed like we believe we would. The promises have been made. The promises have been broken for whatever the reasons are. And when we start talking about the Congresswoman, she's just one person, okay? If we look around, we need to start looking at our elected officials and start saying, hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. If our children haven't been educated over 50 years, hold them accountable. If our grandmothers are still living in houses that we wouldn't even put our pets in, hold them accountable. We live in the largest medical center, the best known, world-renowned medical center in the world. And if I drive right over here to 4th Ward, 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, Acres Homes, 5 miles away from the medical center, my grandmothers don't even have adequate health care. When I look at my young men and they're coming to our schools just a few miles from downtown, I don't want to name out the schools, but you know the schools I'm talking about. And my young men can't get jobs because we haven't trained them properly. We haven't given them the bridge to employment. And then we give them a short rope to Harris County Jail. You ask me, have we made progress? And what are the reasons? How many jobs have been actually brought into this district as a result of those 25 years of service? And we can't talk about, well, we brought in some highways and we brought in some streets and we brought in some parks and we did these types of things. Did we employ any brothers? Did we? And if we don't do that, then we haven't moved forward and the ball hasn't gone down the field. We have to say our positions of progress are relative comfort. There's a difference between relative comfort and actually progressing. And I think we have to just be honest as a people now that it really is time for change. And again, 25 years, I respect that. But you know what? 25 years ago, we had beepers. All right. Now we got smartphones. It's time to change. It's time for us to do something different. And that's the bottom line. And we know that. And we have to be, look, I don't have to be disrespectful and I won't be. Old enough to be my mother, right? In our community, we don't do that. right? So there's no me to talk down to. I'm not going to do that. But I will ask the community to look at the results, look around us, and really honestly assess what's been going on. And when folks just tell us that's the white man over there that's keeping us down, well, goodness gracious, if you've been around for 25 years in any position and you haven't been able to move the ball, I might suggest that you're part of the problem.
So let me follow up to this for just a second. And I agree with you in what you were saying about, things need to be done differently. So speaking of Black people, brothers and sisters, Shelia Jackson Lee is also, I guess, on the HR 40 committee, the study of reparations. What are your thoughts on the study of reparations? And do you think that we as Black people should get reparations?
The study of reparations. Do we need a study to say that we haven't progressed like we want to? We don't need a study for that. We don't. We also know that that's just window dressing. There's no way in this political system that you're going to get a bill passed through the House and then through the Senate that's going to figure out somehow to give every Black man and woman in America some additional money. That's not going to happen. And they know that's not going to happen. So the whole discussion is nothing but deception at its best. It's just one of those things that we do in politics. What we do in politics is that we make people think that we're doing something when we're really not. So if you tell someone, hey, we're going to give you 10,000, 50,000, what's the number going to be? Then vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. We're working on getting you some money. No, what you need to be doing is working on getting my son some jobs so they can make their own money and I don't have to ask the government for any reparations. Because if you give me an opportunity to make $100,000 a year, I can make a couple of million over my lifetime, can I? But if you promise me 50,000 or 20,000, whatever that number may be, and someone at Juneteenth festival last year asked us, well, what's the number going to be? And her response was, well, it might not just be money. Well, what is it going to be? What are we talking about? So you asked me, do I believe that we should get reparations? Yeah, you want to give me reparations? Make sure my children have an opportunity in America. Make sure that we have the proper education. Make sure we have the proper training. Make sure that when my grandmother walks down the street, she's safe. That'll be a reparation enough and just clear the way. You want to talk about having corporate jobs for people that have never seen the inside of those big buildings downtown? Easy jobs. People sitting behind the desk playing Pac-Man and playing, on their iPhones all day, making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. That's some reparation. That's some real reparation. How about doing that? So if you ask me the way it's set up, do I think that it's going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen, and nor do they.
So let me one more question, fellas. All right, so I'm one of those people who believe that we as Black people, American descendants of slaves, should get reparations. But why do you think people are so hopeful when it comes for reparations for the Japanese and, the Obama administration gave Jewish people reparations, and we didn't necessarily have anything to do with that in America. No. Why is it everybody so eager to see them have reparations, but for us, it needs to be a job or, some education. Like, we want a check.
But here's the thing. And you asked me, and I understand that position. I do. But only thing maybe not the only thing, but one of the things that will simply do is to feed into the minds of the people that the government, once again, is going to take care of them. And it's not going to be a long-term fix. What is it going to fix? I mean, it's going to make us feel better for a year. You might take your $25,000. I don't know how they could possibly calculate it, but let's say they calculate and they give you $100,000. You may take your $100,000 and you may be wise enough to turn that money in, invest it, make it secure, put it down for 10 years. It doubles up in 7 to 10 years. And now you got 200,000. But the vast majority of the folks, they're not going to do that. And then what's going to happen? What'll happen is the rest of America will say, we gave you your money, sit in the corner, be quiet, and close your mouth. And we'll be in the same or worse position that we're in right now. I just don't see where that the study of reparations and the granting of additional money is going to solve our problems. I mean, that is not our major problem. I just believe, and it's not because somehow I just was such a brilliant guy and was able to get out of the city and I was on welfare and I just was able to get, no. Long-term solutions is what we need, not a Band-Aid. And we all can agree. Look, if you give me an opportunity to make $1 million, I certainly rather make $1 million than you give me $100,000 and tell me, thank you very much. There you go. Sit in the corner and be quiet. And I think that will be the end result. Not to mention, it's not going to bring unity into this country. It's not. You know, I just don't see how it will. In fact, it'll be even more divisive. If we think we're dealing with some issues now, it will be even more divisive because you're going to have all those other folks looking at us even once again saying, you got what you deserve. You got it. Thank you very much. And there'll be a lot of resentment. I mean,
Okay.
where do you draw the line?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, again, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming out. A lot of you guys out there don't understand how hard it is to get into the military academies, especially if you're coming from a background as, you know, diverse as your background, you know, single motherhood. I mean, it takes endorsements, grades. So, I mean, they look at your, you know, your background basically, because you got to have a good moral character. I mean, it is super tough. So I applaud you for your service. I myself didn't get into the academy, but I did go to the junior college. In the Air Force, in the college of the Air Force, you know,
that's a smart one.
So, but you know, let me follow up the reparations things. Now they've already done the numbers on what it would cost, and it isn't a one-time payment. Okay, reparations, even the United Nations says that reparations need to be paid. It is a financial payment of a wrong done to a group of people.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair.
So, you know, it can't be education. Like, I'm already educated, so that's not going to help me. So, you know, no, it has to be a payment. And whatever that person does with the payment, so what? But because they're going to mess up their payment, that doesn't negate me getting my check as an ADOS person, because we know not everybody's going to get a check. Just because you're Black, you're not going to get a check. Sheila Jackson Lee, she's not getting a check because she immigrated here. We're talking about people that are ADOS. So the number is really a lot smaller. But even Mr. Johnson, who made millions of dollars, pulled himself up by the bootstraps. He came out with the number that was $14 trillion, but he says it's a one-time payment. But the numbers that have been put out there, it's $17 trillion, but I'll take the 14 trillion if they want to do that. It's over a 25 to 30-year period with a $3 trillion payment every year. So now we're in a pandemic. We gave all of this money to white families who have $177,000 annually compared to $14,000 or less for Black people. Why are we giving a check to people who already have money? That's one thing. So I guess my question is, they're throwing out all of this money in defense and just pulling it out of their butts. What's another $17 trillion for what's owed us?
Well, first of all, I mean, we have to, just because they're giving out all this money doesn't make it right. Okay. That's one thing. The fact that they're giving it out the way they're giving it out doesn't make it necessarily right. And so for us to suggest that if they've done it for others, therefore it should be right to do it for us. Well, if it was wrong in the beginning, then it's wrong at the end. And so we need to really, really address if it is the right thing to do. You know, like you said, United Nations says that we should get money for past wrongs. Okay. And this isn't some ultra conservative position that I've taken because I'm some part of Republican parties. You know, that's not the case. And so, you know, he says here, gentleman says, it's not surprising that Republicans don't care about Black people. That's nonsense. I'm Black. How can I not care about Black people? Look at me. You know, you can't tell me that. I grew up in the same places. In fact, I tell these brothers around 5th Ward and 3rd Ward, the folks I've talked to, if you think I don't know what's going on, the hood that I grew up in, believe me, a lot of these guys would be frightened to even walk down the street. So I understand what it means to be a Black man in America. And it has nothing to do with me being a Republican. It's just my mindset is that it's better for us to work for everything that we're supposed to get in this country as opposed to someone giving it to us. You know, scripture says you teach him, you give a man a fish, or you feed him for a day, you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's what I'm talking about. And if you want to give me a reparation to my children, give me a reparation to make sure that the next year they can make their own daggone money. That's more reparation that I need. I want to make sure that my grandchildren have every opportunity to make as much money, to have as much prosperity in this country as they possibly can. And at some point, the funding for reparation will just dry up. And then where are we going to be then? And I heard what you said. You give me my check and then whatever I do with it, that's fine. Well, it'll put us in the same position. We'll just be left in the same position. And that's my concern. I'm not necessarily just totally disagreeing that we shouldn't do something, but that something has to be more than just money. Because we know for a fact that when we just throw money at an issue, that doesn't solve it. How do we know that? Look at what's happened in our country, in our communities. We go over to CUNY Homes. We've thrown money there. Go up to Haverstock. We've thrown money there. Go up to City Gas. We've thrown money there. Okay. All these dollars that we've thrown at the situation without creating an infrastructure that allows people to build to the next level. And let me tell you, that's not just by mistake. It's by design. And what do I mean by that? Without getting into all of it, there's a study out. It's called the Curley effect. Curley, you've heard, you know about it. The Curley effect. The Curley effect is pretty simple. I'm going to distill it in a real basic way. The Curley effect. Curley was a politician in Boston in the early 1900s. He'd been a politician for decades. Every time he'd get reelected, and then if he lost, he'd come back. He'd get reelected again. And then he'd get reelected to a different position. And it was on and on. He continued. He was a master at it. And so the Curley effect has three elements to it. It has one, redistribution or distribution of money. Okay. Two is just having the affinity of either race or religion or culture. So if a man was Jewish, he's going to vote for a Jewish man. If he's Irish, he votes for an Irish man. If he's, if it was between the Irish and the English is going to vote for the Irish, the English will vote for the English. Okay. I'm saying it that way because this was up in Boston. And then the third thing that you use is you use rhetoric, inflammatory rhetoric, divisive rhetoric. Does that sound familiar? What we do in the beginnings is we take money. This is what politicians do. We get money, we make promises, we tell them that we're going to get some money, we're going to bring in the neighborhood. What do we do with that money? We take the money and we tell them that we're going to give them some better parks. We're going to have a nice parade. We're going to have a party in the park on certain days. Okay, fine. But we never take that money and distribute it in such a way that allows people to raise up to the next social economic level in life. And there's a reason for that. Then the other element is you're going to vote for me because I'm black or African American. Or you're going to vote for me because I'm white, and that's why. Or you're going to vote for me because of whatever that box is that you're going to check and have the affinity for. And then the third thing is I'm going to use language that's going to keep you divided, and it'll allow the people that were in your community that might support your community, that might help build up your community. And that doesn't matter. In this particular case, it was in our case, it would be whites that lived in the community that had more money would move out. But it's no different, is it? Because the blacks that have more money, what do? We move out, right? And so it's called immigration, EM, not IMM. So people move away. And then what happens is it leaves the people that are still there in a position where they're depending on that politician, because now the politician has gotten rid of the folks that would challenge them. And the folks that are remaining are just dependent on the politician and the promises that are being broken. And so it creates this cycle of just reelecting the same person over and over and over. And this Curley effect has been proven in the United States, in Boston early in the hundreds, in Atlanta, overseas, And we see it right here in District 18. It's a simple explanation. And so that's what we know happens over and over, the Curley effect. And that's what's going on right now.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm looking at some of the comments. And it's the reason I say I got my people with me. Because I'm gonna stick with my people. Let me tell you something, black people out there that seem to have a problem with Wendell Champion. You asked where was he when we were fighting for the schools? Where were your politicians that sit in office now? Didn't your mayor try to take your same schools and turn them into charter schools? Where were your elected officials in the district that Wendell is going to run for? What did they do? Why did I have to stand in a boardroom and fight for these schools? Why did Larry McKenzie have to fight for these schools? Where were the elected officials in Northeast Houston, where your crime rate is 54% higher than the national average? Where are your elected officials? See, what you want is you want a fabrication. You can't sit in a room with a Republican that'll look you in your eye and tell you where you stand. You want to sit in a room with a black Democrat that's going to placate you and make you believe that he's going to give you the stars, the moon, and the sun, and the whole time he ain't going to give you nothing.
And let me tell you,
want somebody to give you something. I can understand him for a reason. I've been working since I was 16. You people have to tell me to stop working some days. Monroe, you need to take a break. I don't know how. Because all I've ever done is bust my behind. So ain't a Democrat walking ever gave me nothing. Ain't a Republican walking ever gave me nothing. But I need you to sit in a room and open up your thinking. The same people you would turn your eyes to and say, oh, I don't like the Wendells. Them the same one been screwing us up until this day. But you are the coward because you're not man nor woman enough to admit that these same black elected officials that you protect every single day are the ones that's sticking it to you every single day. I don't have a question.
let me tell you, if someone wants to know where I was, okay, this is real simple. This is the time for me now. Everyone has their time. Okay, I've been raising my family. I've raised my 2 kids. I'm with my wife. We're going to be married 30 years come August. So I've been raising my family, get them out the way. Now is the time that I get to step in the gap and bring the challenges that we've have and that we still have to the forefront. And it takes courage. I mean, for folks that say, oh, you know, you're just a Republican. No, man, please stop. Please stop. We have to be willing to take these labels that people have put on us and get rid of them. Put them on the shelf just for a minute. Put them on the shelf for a minute and open up our minds a little bit to the possibility that things could be a little bit different if we did something different. You know that old cliche one talks about if you do the same thing over and over, then it's the definition of insanity. We've heard that over and over. If we're honest with ourselves about what's going on in our communities, we have to say it's not where it's supposed to be. And we have to take some accountability for the reasons why it's not where it's supposed to be. We cannot keep allowing the elected officials, no matter which side of this aisle that they're on, to just say anything, do anything they want to, and then act like they're going to do something for us and they don't. And somebody might have a question out there. Yes, sir. Somebody
This
might.
another comment.
Go ahead, brother.
This another comment. My brothers and sisters, is simple. Reparations. Well, let's go back to slavery. Me and Wendell would have been formatting a plan to get off the plantation. Y'all trying to stay on it. Because y'all really think the mouse and them gonna give you that 40 acres and a mule, huh? How long you been waiting on your reparations? See, we wasting time. We got to figure it out. $1,200 is what them people got for us. That ain't what them people on the other side gave to us. That's the only thing they felt we were worth on our side. So if you want to stay on the plantation, then you stay on it. I'm going to be honest with you. Reparations would be great. I could take it. I could do a lot of things with it. But I'd be damned if I'm going to sit here every day and try to figure out if I'm going to get it. Because these people are playing games. That's basically what he's telling you. They playing games and you playing right along with them.
They're not going to give it to us. Okay, look, yes, ma'am. But they're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You can quote me on this one. It's not going to happen. There's no way they're going to get the majority of the House to pass that, and then get the Senate to pass it, and then get it by the president's desk. And it's not because he's a Republican. If he were a Democrat, he still wouldn't do it because he'll know it's not going to get by the Senate and the House anyway. So he'll stand up there and go, "Oh yeah, we want you to have reparations," knowing daggone well it's never going to make it to his desk.
Well, here's the question, and then I'll pass it to Dimitri. Didn't Obama have the Senate and the House? Why the hell we ain't got our check yet?
Reparations is not a new issue. Reparations was first introduced back in the 70s. Reparations has been having a long-standing, yes, people have been talking about reparations for decades, Dimitri. And they even were talking about it during the past administration. And so all of a sudden they're going to bring it up again. Why? Because they want to get reelected and want to tell our people we're going to give them something. They've been telling us they're going to give us something for years.
Darryl Griffin, I'm going on record right now. Darryl Griffin say, well, when mines come, my reparations, give it to him. Negro, if it comes, you can have it. On record right now, I forfeit it. But I'll die 1,000 times over before they give it to me. So what do I get if we don't get it? Can I get you off my page forever?
You know what? Can I just say this? Let me just say this. Since we're on this topic, let's just say that they're going to give us reparations. Okay, fine. In between now and the time they start to give us reparations, what are we going to do? What else do we need? What else do we need? Let's say it takes the next 4 years to give reparations passed. And then it finally it's going to take another year and two after that to get reparations distributed. How many trillion? 17, 14 trillion? $14 trillion. And where's that $14 trillion going to come from? We're just going to print it. Federal Reserve, we're just going to print more money.
Well, what you can do is you can cut the military budget, and over a period of time, what you can do is you can just print it because the money's not based off anything anyway.
Oh, okay.
So, but like I said, almost 50% of our GDP is the military budget. So take it from there. You can take it from Wall Street. You can have these corporations pay their fair share in taxes. We could, there's all kinds of property.
Okay, so there are some ways where you can get some additional funding. Okay, I will suggest to you that there's waste in defense budgets, no doubt about that. But we got to make sure that we don't take down the budget so much in defense that we become weaker than we already are. I went to military in 1982. During that time, we've seen a drawback in military forces. And I can tell you, without going to all of the details, the fact of the matter is some of the issues that we have seen in our country and across the world is a result of America not being perceived as being strong enough and willing enough to go in and do what we need to do from a military standpoint. And I'm not a warmonger, but let me tell you what, you get a whole lot more peace when you got a big stick and you hit somebody upside the head and they know it's going to be able to do that. Now people say, well, we don't like that. However, war is a part of civilizations and we don't like that, but that's the way it is. So we don't want to hit the defense budget too much. Are there places where we can get it? Yes, sure. We can do it, some of those things. Corporations, corporate welfare. Yeah, we need to work on that. Certainly. Printing more money. We keep on devaluing the dollar. And then what we get what we're getting right now with China beating up on us because they've got money and we don't. All right. The devaluation of gold and gold no longer being a standard. And so when we start talking about the World Bank organizations and how money is actually valued across the world, and America starts to lose its credit, we have problems. And so we cannot take on a policy that we just continue to print money in order to solve our issues. Even with respect to Corona, listen, this is a hard time for people that have lost a lot of their income. Absolutely it is. And so should we help people? We should help people. I grew up on welfare. I'm telling you, people say, well, you don't understand. No, I understand. I've lived it. We have times in our lives when we need to have government to support us for a little while to get back on our feet, to get us moving again. We have to be compassionate enough to do that. We have too many young mothers out there that are struggling, and they continue to struggle because we give them just enough, right? But we can't just keep throwing money at on any of these issues and think that we're going to be a strong economic country. The economy of America will go down, and it'll go down so fast and so hard that we won't be able to buy anything in this country. So they can give us our reparations and put 14, 17 trillion dollars on top of it, and we won't be able to buy anything anyway because the inflation will be so high that our dollar won't be worth a damn. And so those are the types of things we have to think about in this backdrop of this story. I get it. Do we have a problem with corporate welfare? You better believe we do. Do we have a problem with folks that aren't paying their fair share of taxes? Yes, that's true. There's a middle class and the lower middle class being taxed more than the upper middle class. Yeah, sure. On a percentage basis, that's what we see. But that's tax reform issue. That's not let's go take more money from them and let's go then print more money. Those don't solve economic problems. Long term, what we need as a Black people in America, as African Americans in America, we need, if you want reparations, how about reestablishing businesses in our community? How about funding the infrastructure in the communities so that there's economic base so that we can have businesses and have our own banks and have our own grocery stores and have our own strip centers that we own. And then let those people that are competing to do those things compete to get it done. And then we create jobs within our communities so that the kids don't need to have any daggone reparations. How about making sure that when we go down OST, that all those businesses are nice businesses and they're building them up. And we go straight down our Dowling Street now, Emancipation Park, that we have businesses that are owned by our people. How about creating a bank so we have more than one Black bank in the whole state of Texas? And so that they can, Unity Bank sitting right over there on 3rd Ward. Yeah, we got one bank in this whole state.
One Black bank in the one Black bank in the whole state
of Texas,
and all these Black people in Houston, and you won't even put your money in, and they ain't made a profit in 3 years.
So we want reparations.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Lord have mercy. I'm gonna just say this. Like I listened for the last 15 minutes and I'm bewildered as a Black woman, and I'm probably the youngest on here, I would think. And I mean, I've heard stuff like, the handouts, and we need to pull ourselves up, by the bootstraps, and, we need to do all we can to not dilapidate the dollar and all that. Listen, my mama had a saying, she says, not my monkey, not my show. It is not my concern what's going on with the United States of America until they pay us as Black people our reparation. It's going to take us 232 years to catch up with that of wealth of white people. The reparations is due Black people from all of the horrors and the unpaid labor that we had in slavery. The white slave master got paid reparations for losing their property, our ancestors. And so we are the only group of people, and I'm not mad, I'm just passionate, but we're the only group of people that make excuses for us not to get what's due us. We need jobs, we need business, we need all of that stuff in addition to a reparation. Why is it that we as Black people have to have people tell us what to do with our money? If I want to roll my money up on a toilet paper roll and use it for that purpose, that's for me to do. And as far as Gary talking about, y'all wouldn't have been on the plantation. Hell yeah, y'all have been on the plantation because y'all wouldn't agree with everything.
Damn right, I'd have been gone the first day.
You've been right over there talking about, yes, massa. The people who hold out for reparations, those are the people who would have got a whooping to the backside because we want what's ours, right? And so I just, it's to me, and not trying to be disrespectful, but it's disgusting to hear Black people talk about what Black people should not have to do or we need to. No, we want our money. Everybody else unapologetically gets their money from Hispanics, Asians. Hell, we even celebrate Armenian genocide, and that didn't happen over here. But as Black people, we got to be sacrificing for the country. Oh, write me my check, and then I can hear everything else. And I don't think it's a partisan issue either. I think the Democrats and Republicans have all let Black people down. As Malcolm X said, right now we're in the election cycle, and we're being forced to choose between the lesser of two evils. But he also said, choosing evil, the lesser two evils is still choosing evil. So me personally, I have chosen to hold my vote until I, as a Black woman, get something for my vote, whether it's from Trump or whether it's from Biden. So, talking about we don't need now, we want our money, and preferably in hard cold cash.
Well, here's the thing. I get what you said, and we barely ever differ. But I'm gonna tell you how I am. You wrong about me would have sat there and took a whooping. I'd have been Kunta and I'd have been running from the first day. I would have not stayed. The second thing is, the reason we ain't gonna get no money, because you got the wrong set of Negroes trying to get it for you. You got the wrong politicians in there fighting, trying to get it for you. 25 years, you ain't figured out the game. I got to study every other day. I know that you are a professor, so you have to make me study, Madam Professor. It took them 25 years to study it. Let me ask y'all a question, just y'all on the panel. How many of y'all actually like the DARE program? You know the DARE program that works with the police department? You think that was a successful program? I think it was bullshit. What does the DARE program do? It makes you aware of drug problems. Go study it. It makes you aware. Well, when I was 16 years old, way back 35 years ago, they came into my school and they were talking about the DARE program. Don't you know I got throughout the assembly? Thousands of kids in the auditorium, I get throughout. Why? I asked one question. Why do I need to be aware of the dope? I already know where the dope is. Can you create a program that gets them off the dope? So from 16 to now, what program gets them off the dope? They want you to stay on the dope. They want you to stay hungry. They want you to stay begging. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting on reparations.
Listen, that's us too.
In the meantime, while I'm waiting, I'm going to keep building. I'm not making no excuses. That's all I'm saying. I understand some days we ain't going to agree on everything. But y'all keep fighting for it. I know I'm going to die 1,000 times before we get it.
I'm just suggesting to you, Demetri, that this whole play about studying about reparations, it's like 3-card Monte. New York, the game that I'm talking about? You're the shell, the 1, 2, 3, where's the ball, where's the card, where it is? It's 3-card Monte. This is Jedi mind trick type of stuff. This is nothing more than a play on our emotions once again. That's what this is. And it makes for great dialogue. It makes for us to be able to hear and talk about these things. And while we're waiting for this reparation, this study, how long is this study supposed to take anyway?
It's taken over 25 years so far.
That's right. So another 25 years. No.
1870.
Since the 70s?
1870.
No, since they've been talking about reparations.
since 1870, since we were free from slaves. They were talking about, they in fact gave us reparations, but they took it back and then paid the massa white people because they lost us. I know what I'm talking about.
And so you think they're going to make it? You think they're going to make this pass? You think they're going to make it pass? So it's one thing for us to say. Let me tell you, it's one thing for us to say they should give it to us. Okay, do you ask me, do we deserve compensation for the ills and the horrors and the losses that we've had? Somewhere in there, absolutely, we should be somehow made whole for those losses. Sunkist says there are ways, but they're still not going to do it. That's right. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. So it's just a mind game to get us to get into something so we can hold on to this hope that's false, that somehow, and then we go and vote for them. That's what that's about. And we got to call that out. That's all that is. That's all that is.
The crazy part, me and you have never spoken except for the last couple of days when I booked you for the show. But watch this. Ain't that what I've been telling y'all, man? The same way they knew they wasn't going to get Trump out of office. They just want to remind you that they tried in November. Stop it, man. This is so simple, it's unreal.
So let me ask this question real quick. Okay, so you're running against Shelia Jackson Lee.
Yes, sir.
And you're okay. She's been in office for a long time, and I'm with you on the respect thing. Beepers versus smartphones, like that. If when you get elected, what are you going to be bringing to the district in regards to jobs and reforming the community?
I tell you what, one of the things I have the ability to do, I have the resources, is to connect people to jobs and not just connect people to jobs that are outside, but I have businessmen and businesswomen who we're already talking to about bringing parts of their operations into the district. Why? Because we don't need to have a young man and a young woman have to go 25 miles out of their district in order to get a job. That doesn't make any sense. When we've got land all the way around this place, when we can invite, encourage, incentivize businesses to come right here into our neighborhoods. And people go, well, they've been trying to do that for years. No, they haven't. Do you know the power of the pen of a congressional seat or a phone call, a 5-minute phone call? It goes something like this, and it's real simple. I pick up the phone and you go, no, it's not that simple. And I'll give you a simple example afterwards. You pick up the phone and you go, hey, listen, I'm trying to get some young men out of Cooney Homes. I'm trying to get some young men off the block. And I just need you, if you can put part of your operation in our district. I'm not asking you to bring your headquarters here. Just part of your operation, part of your logistics, something that we can do that we can put people to work. Are you willing to do that? And then folks go, well, no, it's too dangerous. And that's why people don't do it. Not true. Because the only thing I got to do there is say, okay, how much does it cost extra for you to employ some individuals in this operation and this location? Extra security, how much does that cost? Extra training because we're concerned that they may not be up to par yet. How much does that cost? We're concerned about whether or not we're going to have turnover. Okay, fine. How much does that cost? What's the cost? Put $1 on it. And we're going to talk about some corporate welfare. Okay, now I'm going to give you a tax incentive to make sure you have some operations in my neighborhood and my kids can go from high school around the corner, get trained, get a job, and don't have to move out. Okay, and it's not that difficult. Right now, as we speak, I have a young man, and I won't call his name out for his own privacy. I have a young man, a father, has had some challenges in his history, lives right over there in Cooney Homes. I contacted him about 2 weeks ago. I was talking to another resource who owns a big private construction company, and said, listen, man. He says, well, I want to help people. I said, you want to help people? I'll tell you how you help people. Why don't you let me go find you some men and we put them to work? He says, you can.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Let me do a follow-up to that. So we had the same kind of idea where I live. Mm-hmm. And I live in now a highly Hispanic city. The
Okay.
biggest FBI bribe in history happened to a council member here. And the jobs that they brought, they promised, oh, we're going to develop, and they kept true to their promise. And the jobs that they brought was warehousing, low-paying warehouse jobs in California. So what I'm asking is, in Houston, what kind of jobs do you think that the community deserves that you're going to bring?
Okay, first of all, what kind of jobs do they deserve? We deserve what we get prepared for. Okay, that's number one. All right, you don't deserve things if you haven't worked for them and gotten prepared for them. All right, I mean, because and I'm saying that just that way because if we think that people are going to just give us something, no. But the types of jobs we've got, there are plenty of jobs in America where we can bring in manufacturing jobs, and we go, well, they don't pay that much. Oh yeah, they do. The right type of manufacturing job can pay quite well. The construction job, I'm talking about this young man. Okay, so yeah, he's gonna start off at $14 an hour. Well, you know what he told me? And I say, young man, he's got a family. He said he hasn't made $14 an hour on any job he's ever had. But the progress now, when he gets to the next step, now it's $20 an hour. He's an older guy, so he has some skill sets that he's already bringing to the table. He gets through that, and now he has possibilities to get into becoming a manager or a supervisor. He stays around for 5-6 years, and now he's making $70,000 a year. So we can do that. Do you get $70,000 out the box? No. Why not? Because no one deserves that. Very few people deserve $70,000 out the box. You pay your dues. You work hard. We can bring in technology jobs right here in the middle of this city, right there on Wheeler Street, right across from Fiesta. Rice University is bringing this technology center here. Well, why don't we take a building over in Third Ward so my high school kids can go learn how to code, and my elementary school kids can learn how to code, so that when they get out, they can make $70,000 a year coming right out of high school. So we're not talking about bringing in another Church's Chicken or Frenchie's Chicken, and nothing's wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm talking about is there are jobs out there in this technology fields that we can put people to work in. We can rebuild medical facilities right there in our own communities. You go over the 5th Ward off of Lyons Avenue, you go right over there and you got the Barbara Jordan Medical Center. It's a dilapidated building, shuttered. You think grandma down the street doesn't need a healthcare facility? We can create jobs right in there. Well-paying jobs where someone comes out and they become a nurse's aide or start off CNA, make $15. Send them to school for another year or two. Now they're a nurse. You know how much a nurse makes? And we need that in our community, you know? So we can make real jobs. Corporations, listen, we think these corporations aren't making any money, and people working in Amazon warehouses not making any money, talking about warehouse jobs. They're starting off at $15 an hour. 15 times 200 or 2,000 is $30,000 a year. If you're a young man, a young woman, and you're single and you don't have a whole lot of lifestyle already built up, $30,000 a year is pretty good coming out the box. You stay around for a few years, now all of a sudden you're making $40,000, $45,000 a year. That's pretty doggone good. We put some additional education on that, on tell them how to invest that money, how to invest in their 401k, how not to spend all that money on the newest car and the newest shoes and all types of things, and how to save it up. And all of a sudden, before you know it, they're making $50,000. They're 10 years in, now they're making $60,000 and they've saved $100,000. So we can do it. I'm not talking about just bringing in jobs that just to say they have a job flipping burgers. No one wants that. No one's going to do that for any amount of time. You can't take care of a family doing that. And we can give these corporations, give them the incentive to do just that. If we're going to give away money and we're going to have corporate welfare, then guys, darn it, why don't we just give them tax credits to put their operations in the middle of my neighborhood? That's how you can do it. You know, right now, you're not going to hear much about opportunity zones because it's a Trump 2017 initiative. that's brought on, introduced by Tim Scott, the senator out of South Carolina, pushing forward in opportunity zones. Most of this district has opportunity zone. An opportunity zone is an initiative where they will have business folks bring their businesses in. They give them tax breaks, all that. They give them tax breaks. And the argument against it is, here's another program that rich white men are just using to leverage to buy out this community and not provide any jobs. Well, if that's the case, now I make the argument that we look at that and we make it a requirement to make sure that we have training and jobs of people that are coming out of the community. There's nothing wrong with that. And we make sure that the African Americans and the Hispanics and Latinos, those folks that are considered to be the minority majority, that they get to play at that table. And you can do it. But you got to have people, we've got to have leaders that are willing to reach across the aisle and get these things done. And what I'm suggesting to you, and again, I'm going to say respectfully, because we've already established that. What I'm suggesting to you, if that the current leaders or elected officials had the capability of doing that, they would have done it. Okay? It's not that simple. I mean, it's not that complicated. If something needs to be done, a person is either incapable, okay, incompetent, or inconsiderate. That means that they don't know how. They're incapable. Or they're incompetent. They really they don't know how to even identify it, or excuse me, if they're incompetent, they can't do it no matter what. If they're incapable, they can identify it, but they don't have the resource, they don't have the ability to do it. It's like looking at a wall that's 3 feet tall, and I go, okay, I understand it takes to jump over that wall. I'm not capable.
Let me jump in here.
And let me let the last one, and I'll let you, and then you jump in. Or the last one is inconsiderate. You know what the problem is. You have the ability to do it, and you just don't care. So whichever one of those fits, the bottom line is our people in the same position because the folks are either incapable, incompetent, or inconsiderate.
I hear a lot of just, between you and Gary, hear a lot of bootstrappy conversation, almost like we need to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. And wait, let me finish. And we need to do for self. Because I want to know from you, do you believe that systemic and institutional racism exists? Why or why not? And what can be done about it? Because I know that systemic and institutional racism exists. So it's not just us as Black people. We have to do something. There's also something that's got its thumb on Black people. So I think for us to not even have that conversation is disingenuous. So what is your opinion about
that's fair? Does it exist? Yeah, it exists. Of course it exists. I'm not blind to it. I've lived it. 56 years of being a Black man in America. There's nobody that can tell you that it doesn't exist. It exists. When we look at our history, you're much more of a historian than I am. But when we look at our history, we know where we came from. We had slavery in America. Then we had Jim Crow. Then we had segregation. Then we had legislation, right? And all those things impact us in ways that no one can even truly imagine unless you've experienced it and you've seen the effects of it. And we've all seen the effects of it in our history and our families. I tell my white friends that when they think about these things, they think about them academically and they go, oh, Wendell, how can that be? And I tell them it doesn't really matter how it can be because you won't fully understand it. And I tell them that. I say, you might be able to digest it academically, but you can never fully understand it because you haven't lived it. So do I think it exists? Yeah. Do I know it exists? Yes. Right now, when a young man, I was telling my son the other day, he doesn't fully understand it. He got his first job out of college. And I was trying to explain to him that how we keep people from getting these great jobs in America now. We go on LinkedIn, we fill out an application, there's an algorithm on the back side, and that algorithm shoots back out. And they get their candidates of choice. Yeah, they do. They get their candidates of choice because their clients, if it's a headhunter, their clients have already tuned them in a little bit as to who they're looking for. And so they can very easily say, well, there's a third party that provided me with these candidates. I didn't go out and find them. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because when I go down to those big corporate offices, I still don't see anybody, hardly, that looks like me. When my wife, so does it exist? Yes. Is it getting smarter? Yes. Is it getting harder to prove up? Well, anecdotally, we know it's not hard to prove up because we live it every day.
So before I give Gary the floor, because he looked like he's ready to go off.
I'm going to shock the world with this, what I'm finna say.
But with that, if systemic and institutional racism did not exist, and we as Black people were able to close that wealth gap, your son graduated from college, wouldn't have to go on LinkedIn to look for a job. Perhaps one of us can give him a great job.
We're saying the same thing.
Right. So I'm saying that we need our money. And somebody made in the comments that we need to get rid of systemic racism. I think that's what it said. That's not our job. We didn't create systemic racism. That was something that was done to us. Like, it's not our job to get rid of racism or the system that holds us down. That is for the people who created that to get rid of it. Gary?
I left Larry's comment up, and he asked, what has Wendell done? Larry is an activist, and he's big in education. He's my brother in the urban. I'm going to tell you what Wendell has not done. His opponent, and I've said it on the show. You love education, Larry. I think you missed that show. His opponent went back behind the community's back and cut a side deal with TA to close North Forest down. I have the press release. Wendell didn't do that. But this the same person that attributed to a whole side of town being destroyed by that action. Because when you close that school district down, you close the community down. It has never recovered. So what I would say is this here. I'm going to say two things to y'all. Wendell, you got my vote.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Secondly, I don't bootstrap. Tonight will be my last night on the war zone because I don't bootstrap. I'm going back to the hood, CNN. That's it for me.
Well, let me tell you, can I address this? So he wants to know what I've done. Larry, I appreciate that. First, I haven't been a career politician, okay? So I haven't been a career politician. And so what we have to do, just kind of going back on what the general says here, what we need to be asking is, what has the others done with an opportunity of 25 years? Okay, that's the real question. That's the real question. For me, obviously, I haven't written any legislation. Obviously, I haven't gone in and brought in millions and billions of dollars to fix roads. Obviously, I haven't funded emergency funding just to send money from FEMA down to the neighborhood. Obviously, okay. The question is, you put me in office and see what I can do. And what I'll tell you, what you'll find out, you'll find a guy, forget about this Republican Democratic nonsense, but you'll find a guy that's committed to the people. And how do I know that? I can only tell you about the little things I've done from my heart now. Prior to this corona, I spent my Sundays up at Haverstock Hills with the children up there to bring them Sunday school. I worked.
Man, don't say that, brother. Don't say you in a war zone where they killing folk, dumping them in dumpsters, and I don't see the Congresswoman show up until it's something big. And don't say that, man. You're gonna make real Black people mess with you.
Hey, I'm telling you, boots on the ground, and I've been doing that on and off for 10 years, trying to find out ways to help people that live in that community. Because when I was introduced to the community 10 years ago, what I found was young mothers, young children that were captured in that environment. Concertina wire, barbed wire going around the fence. The young mothers would take their kids up to the gate, open it. The teachers would come and open the padlock on the gate, let the kids go into the school, lock the padlock, concertina wire going around the fence. And then at the end of the day, mom would go pick them up in the same kind of way they let them back out of jail. What? Subliminal messaging to my young boys that this is the way you're going to live. We have souls out there, and I committed myself to find ways to go in and get as many as I possibly can. You mentioned earlier, I said, we don't leave them on the battlefield. We go in and we get them. We go in and we get them. We don't sit around for 25 years complaining about the fact that our schools, our kids aren't getting educated and just pretending like we're doing something in order to make people feel good. No. If there's a systematic racism or systemic prejudices and discriminations that's keeping our people down, that we need to have folks that are willing to go in there and fight harder and not just say they fight. You get this little, well, I fight for my people. Well, hell, it's time to win for your people, not fight for your people. Win for your people. And if you can't do that, step aside and let somebody come in and do it. So you ask me, what have I done? I tell you what, I've given my heart to try to help people. Right now, as I was saying earlier, I've got a young man right now. On Monday morning, we expect him to go get an interview, to go get a job. He hasn't had a job in some time, and he's excited. And it didn't take a whole $1 billion. And I'm not pushing on your reparations. That's not my point. It didn't take some 10-year study to figure out whether or not my young man needs a job to take care of his family, and how do we do it. It takes a couple of simple phone calls with this real desire to help people, and we can get it done. And that's all I'm asking the folks to do. I'm not asking you to somehow become some red card carrying, red flag carrying Republican. No, that's between you and God and your conscience and how you think you should vote. I'm asking you to go to the polls, look at Champion, go to champion2020.com, look at my page, look at what I'm about, and then give it a shot. And heck, 2 years from now, if I haven't shown you that I've done something, get me out of there. That's all. It's a simple equation. You got to have somebody that's willing to go in and win for you. So I've done that. And I've done some other things as well. But I want you to know that much, that I would give my heart to my people. I've always have. And if you knew me more personally, you'd know that to be the truth. Uncompromised. And I'm not going to steal.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I love it. I'm going to tell you, we have one of the greatest conversations on the net. We don't always agree. Mr. Champion, I want you to know there is no Democrat on this panel. So I hope you don't think it's a Democrat versus whatever. But let me just ask this question from Rontrell Bradford. Jerry, you can't be upset with us because we don't agree with this dude. Some of us just ain't feeling him, period. So I'll let the general take over.
You know what? Because you know what I got a problem with? If you lucky I ain't like I was 3 months ago, because I showed you this colostomy bag. And I want you to understand why I wear this bag. Because when you sitting at home and you playing these internet games, I'm in this community working when your politicians don't work. I'm fighting for schools when your mayor trying to steal them from you. And what I'm telling you is you need to open up your mind. You made a profound statement to me last week, Demetra. You take care of your health. And I refuse after today to put my life on the line for a community that is blind and does not want to open their eyes. So you damn right I'm upset. Because when you out partying, when you having Christmas, I'm doing this shit for real, man. Where are your politicians? What I told y'all about the Houston Police Department. The audit came out. Was I wrong?
Gary, let me say this.
I told you exactly what.
Let me say this. Behind Donovan is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And none of us on this panel has given the blood, sweat, and tears that man has given for Black people. Farrakhan is 87 years old. You don't
I
think?
beg to differ.
Let me finish. Let me
I
finish.
stood in a school board meeting
All right,
and I was dying.
I'll see y'all later. It's been real. Thank you.
I'm gonna say this here. I stood in a school board meeting one night and I was dying and didn't know it. But I was fighting for kids. And when I left there, I was in the hospital for 23 days. Where were my elected officials to fight that fight? Final thought, Donovan.
Well, like I said, as an Air Force officer myself, I went to the junior college, by the way, and went to Embry-Riddle. Later on, became a pilot and all that other good stuff like that. So, you know, we give you guys, Army guys, a good ride. C-130s, by the way.
Fair enough.
I'm going to have to say this. There are no Democrats on this panel. There's a lot of disagreements. But this is how we get the things started and we get things changed, by having a conversation. And just like Mr. Champion has said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. A lot of us are Democrats, and that's fine if that's what if you want to be. But I believe the biggest detriment to Black people's progress is the Democratic Party. The Democrats control the House right now. What legislation is Nancy Pelosi putting up in regards to reparations? Nothing. Obama was in office with a supermajority in the House and the Senate. He did DACA and the Dreamers. So it's just a conversation, something to think about. But I want to thank you, Mr. Champion, as a veteran. Thank you for your service. And please come back. 5-star, we need more of your people on this show so we can have a good conversation.
No, you don't need change on this show. What you need is a fabrication. You can't go both ways. You can't say that about Pelosi when you have another option. She's not gonna do nothing anyway. It's a game. He's already broke that down to you. It's a game. But the thing is we're comfortable where we are. So we can't keep acting like we sick of Shelia before election. And then when the election come around, oh, well, he's not good enough. But you've been sick of her for 3 years.
Yeah.
But he ain't did enough. But what has she done? That's all I'm saying. It's not about me not accepting other people's opinion. I do that every day. But Louis Farrakhan love him to death. But Minister, I've been in the hospital for over 50-something days, fighting a fight that I should have never had to fight. Not one politician would fight that fight. How did you start watching Gary Monroe, all of y'all out there? Because I'm doing the job of a politician. But even Gary Monroe wasn't good enough to be a politician. Because when it was my turn to be Wendell Champion, you wouldn't vote for me either. Man, you good with me, Wendell? You got my vote.
I appreciate it, man. Let me say this, and I know you letting us wind it down. But if we're going to get political power and get the power to be in this country, to pay attention to our community, we're going to need to start thinking of ourselves as free agents, at a minimum, a free agent. You know, we all know sports. It's real simple. When an athlete says that he or she is worth more, they say I'm a free agent. And that makes that team that wasn't giving them enough pay more attention to them. And it makes the whole league then pay more attention to them. And all of a sudden, everyone's paying attention to them. The problem that we have as a people is that our allegiance to one party is so strong and it's so predictable that neither party has delivered. Now it's time for change. So we go to the party and we say, look, here's the deal. I love you. However, I'm going to give this guy a shot. You know why? Because he might just do something. I promise you this much. First of all, I'm not going to be in office for 25 years because I'll be 81 years old and they don't make any daggone sense. All right. So I'm not going to be there that long, not 25 years, but I'll be long enough to do this. I'll be there long enough to show you that I either am competent or incompetent. I'm capable or I'm incapable. I'm considerate or I'm inconsiderate. And then as soon as you find that out, you're getting me out of there. And if I can't deliver to my people because the system just doesn't work, then I'll get back on the phone and I'll get back on the television. I'll get back on the screen and say, listen, guys, I'm just incapable. I doubt very much that I'm incompetent. I can tell you that. I've been a lawyer. I told you the personal journey from welfare to West Point, and I appreciate you saying it, is that that's not something you can just do just because you woke up. That takes a lot of stuff to keep on going. But then, a military officer, West Point graduate, I'm a licensed attorney. I've worked in corporate America. I worked in small companies. I worked in my own companies. I worked in ministry. I worked on the ground, volunteer work, helping these children, helping these young mothers. And I've worked in law enforcement, and I work in law enforcement now. And so when you put all that stuff together, I have experience in every major corporate industry that we need to understand. Now, I may not be the expert in law. I may not be the expert in military defense. I may not be the expert in pharmaceutical or healthcare or oil and gas or law enforcement. But I tell you what, I've got enough experience to bring those things to the table, and I can bring those things to the table and bring the experts to the table. And I have enough analytical knowledge and hooped to find solutions for our people. And there's not one candidate out there right now besides me that can do that, because if they could, they would, and they haven't because they can't. And that's the bottom line. So I just ask y'all to understand how I really feel about this. And it's not just about some allegiance to the Republican Party that I've been blinded by something. No, I haven't. What I understand is our people need a change. We cannot for another 10 years go and allow our children to go to high school, come out of high school, not give our young men jobs and training, and then expect them to do something. No. And then we give them a short trip to Harris County Jail, and then all of a sudden they're back on the street and they can't get a job, and now they've got to really hunt, and they can't hunt for a job and up in the corporate, so they got to hunt for survival in the street. This isn't a hard equation. And we wonder why men hunt in the street, because they're men. That's why. And men have to hunt because they got to impress that pretty little thing. And so we set them up for failure. You want to read a good book? You go read Michelle Alexander's book. He's shaking his hand. You probably got a copy. You go read it. You go read her book in the mass incarceration of blacks in America, the new Jim Crow. You want to tell me I don't understand? I understand. I see it on a daily basis, and it breaks my heart to see our men caged up like animals. And then they come out with some small petty felony and they can't get a job, can't get a loan, can't get a house, can't. And it's legalized discrimination across the board. You don't think I understand that we need to have some judicial reform, that we need to have legal reform? I understand. We need to have economic reform, education reform, and not just some pretending that we're trying to help people. That day has gone, that ship has passed. And we as a people have to hold our leaders accountable for not delivering to us. And that's where I am. So please take a look at champion2020.com and you'll find it. And if you want to send me a message personally, I'll respond to them the best I can. You send me a call, I'll call you. I'll spend the time with you. I'll talk to you. Because we have to. I can't leave this country, leave these communities, and have my grandbabies come into this world the way it is right now. And that's where my heart is. And I don't think you're going to hear any Republican candidate, for those who think that this is, oh, the Republicans. No, you never heard a Republican talk like this in your life, and you know it. Because I'm not just talking as some Republican. I'm talking about as a man who grew up in this country, as an American, black, male in this country, and I know what it feels like, and I know it. And just because I'm not giving you all the personal experiences, don't even think for a minute that I haven't experienced it. My family hasn't experienced it. And I don't understand the fear and the concern of sending my young black son out into this country. You think I don't know? Certainly I know. But I also know this. This still is the greatest country in the world for opportunity. This is the only country in the world where if you work hard enough, despite what hand you've been dealt, you can move the socioeconomic level of your family in one generation to have everything they ever wanted. But we can't get confused and get tricked and let people play this 3-card money game with us, making promises to us for another decade. And then all of a sudden we're 10 years more, and then another decade, and then we have grandkids. It's too late for that. It's time for us to do something different. We need to send a strong message to these elected officials that the time is now. When it's time for them to retire, they need to retire and let some new energy come in there and do some things differently and get it done. And that's what I'll do. And I promise you this, if I can't get it done, I'll move out. But I thank you for the opportunity to help, because that's all I want to do.
We're going to close it out. I appreciate you coming on, brother. You got my vote. And I don't care who gets mad. I don't care if Shelia gets mad. Ain't never gave me nothing, and I don't think she would ever give me nothing. So that's what it is. I'm holding everybody accountable. If you don't like what I'm talking about, then that's your business. But tonight, you guys have helped me. You can find you another education advocate, because now I'm gonna make you hold your elected officials accountable. I'm not fighting these battles no more. You can fight HPD by yourself. Now get your elected official to do it. Fight city council by yourself. Let's get your elected official to do it. Gary Monroe is one man, and I want to live life till I'm 80, 90 years old. And at the track that I'm on, if I keep doing what I'm doing, fighting these battles for y'all while you sit behind a computer and type, instead of holding these people accountable, I'll be dead in 2 years. I've just changed my mind.
Well, you had the baton to me.
It's time to hold your elected official accountable. But I don't have those issues for one reason. My people's is making it happen. My people's gonna make sure we straight. And I jump from your side to their side for a reason. I'm tired being broke. I'm tired of being broke. I don't want to pay no taxes. And if that means you're going to take my black card, then you can have it and stick it square up your behind. Because I'm running with my peoples now. And if you're mad, get a dog. Get a dog if you're mad. Because that's how I feel. Say, man, I want to thank you guys. Overheated discussion tonight. I had my peoples in the building, Wendell champion. And on behalf of my co-host, the Queen Demetra K. Donovan Sadiq, I am the 5-star general. I catch you on the Hood CNN. I'm signing off, baby.